So, water. About telepathy. Let me check this. Yeah, okay. My mic's good. About telepathy. You may think you know what telepathy is, and you're partially right. There are two forms of telepathic communication. There is mind-to-mind telepathic communication, where one person communicates telepathically to another. And then there is spectral realm telepathy, where people interact incidentally inside of the shared spectral realm that everyone shares. So let me give you some theory. There's a spectral realm. It feels like it's inside your own head, but it is very vivid. It's a landscape. It's full of cities. It's got mountains. It's got monsters. It's got all kinds of cool stuff. And I gave you a guided tour in a previous video. I'll keep posting guided tours as I get better, and as I show more things, and as I find more things up there. So people sometimes go telepathic. And when someone has a telepathic incident where they become telepathic, most of the time that telepathy will also be comorbid with mental illness. So I viewed telepathy as what the fish viewed land before they gained the ability to live on it. So, for example, I'm pretty sure the first fish to ever crawl onto land did not do very well in it. And when he went back into the ocean, his adaptations that allowed him to live inland sort of destroyed his ability to live in the water. You can't... Anyways, so schizophrenics go telepathic, yeah? And they believe that people are sending them messages. So one of the bad things about this universe is that when someone dies connected to the telepathic world, they release food and energy. So people, when they die, release a sort of explosion of delicious food and energy up there in the spectral realm. And so these entities, these tigers or sharks, they're beings. They go around and connect with people who are sensitive to this spectral realm and tell them to kill themselves over and over again. These beings, you could call them devils, you can call them demons, but they are more akin to sharks, and we are the fish. So they are not like us. They're above us. We are their prey. Or at the very least, they hunt us, and they kill us by causing us to want to kill ourselves. And when a schizophrenic or a depressed person kills themselves, these sharks eat their essence. Their essence, when someone dies, their essence is released in an explosion of color and juice and beautiful stuff. And these sharks eat it. It's their food. We're just spiritual food for these monsters. Although, the thing is, these monsters only eat people who are sensitive to this realm, because they can only kill people, or they can only hurt people who are sensitive to the spectral realm. Anyways, so I existed for a while in a sort of dual universe kind of way, where I saw a possible universe that is somewhat like ours, but also very different. So it was a universe where everyone had telepathy, but it was a crime punishable by death to speak about it. So there were two layers. There was the layer that everyone speaks with each other verbally through sound, and then there was a layer where everyone speaks to each other telepathically. And there's this thing called the armistice, okay? In this universe, there was something called an armistice. where people could not acknowledge the existence of telepathy unless they really trusted that person. So, the one of the most extreme expressions of vulnerability in this world is to go to someone and say, "You're speaking to me telepathically," and they'll say, "You're speaking to me telepathically," and you'll both say, "Telepathy exists," but we're not able to talk about it with anyone else because it's punishable through some sort of convoluted legal procedure. And in this reality, long distance telepathy is only possible through drugs. So, but the thing is, long distance telepathy is also necessary for a number of professions. So, in this reality, all of the people in high end professions are constantly high on LSD in order to communicate long distance with their peers. But the problem is, LSD is still illegal in this world, and it was a very interesting world. It's a very interesting setting for a book, and I actually thought it was real for a good portion. Yeah, that's what psychosis does to you. Although my psychosis was very interesting. Jesus Christ, it was crazy. Anyways, so telepathy. Telepathy is difficult if you're not under the influence, either A, under the influence of some sort of psychedelic drug, or B, gifted with a very vivid and representative imagination. Well, I was gifted with a very representative imagination, but I was also cursed with psychosis and schizophrenia. So the medication I take, which is very necessary, keeps me from imagining stuff. So the inside of my head is pretty much dark, and I get impressions of stuff, but I can't really communicate with other people. I actually only once communicated with someone, confirmed my communication with someone telepathically, person to person, face to face, mano a mano, and this was in a psych ward. Yeah. Disclaimer to anyone who is watching this and does not, get what I'm talking about. No, I'm serious, but at the same time, I'm not serious. I realize how crazy this may sound to someone who doesn't know, doesn't really believe what I'm trying to tell them. And to them, I say, believe what you want. If you don't like what I'm talking about, you can switch off whatever it is. I'm not crazy. I just have cool stuff that I want to talk about. Yeah, if someone gets the wrong idea about what I'm trying to tell them, it may result in some problematic stuff for me. Because yeah. Well, I really, I was hospitalized several times for my schizophrenia, and I really did not like it, and I do not want to go back. And there's always a possibility that by talking about this stuff openly, I could be misconstrued as psychotic or crazy. I'm not dangerous to anyone. I'm not psychotic right now, as far as I can tell. I'm just recounting the stuff that I experienced while I was connected to the spectral realm. Yeah. So, okay. So telepathy, the history of telepathy in this world. Telepathy was apparently it was the fruit that Adam and Eve ate. But the whole story is a little bit different from what people usually say it. There was an interdimensional trader. Yeah. So there's these interdimensional traders. They look kind of like serpents. Yeah. But they're not snakes. They're just spiritual beings who have a long and spindly body and a face at one end. Interestingly enough, there was a crazy ass story I'll tell you after this one. But these interdimensional traders came to Earth and sold some of the first humans telepathy, except for the fact that the telepathy that these traders sold humans was not geared towards the human psyche. The telepathy that was sold to these humans was based on a much more warlike and aggressive race. So when humans, when they bought this telepathy, yeah, when they bought this telepathy and inserted it into their minds, the telepathic communication between people became super aggressive, super just destructive. Like, people down here, they always want to get along, but the telepathy that we inherited or we bought from these traders replaced the telepathy that we would have developed normally, and these telepathic, sentient telepathic nodules inside of our brains are like spouting destructive criticism at each other all day long. Everybody, and that's the reason why we don't acknowledge the existence of telepathy in this universe, because we have the wrong kind, or we had the wrong kind before. In this story, I sort of finished a Russian prototype telepathy. Anyways, I'll get onto that. Okay, later on I'll talk about that too. So we humans were implanted with the wrong kind of telepathy, and it totally screwed up our psychic evolution. We refused to acknowledge the existence of this telepathy because it was so degrading and so embarrassing. Yeah, we couldn't stand the fact that our telepathic communications were so contradictory to our true being, and that's just because we inherited the wrong telepathy. And so what happens is telepathy is passed from father to child, from mother to child. Telepathy is passed through people. So when a child is born, sometimes they'll have a brand new telepathy, and sometimes they'll have an old telepathy. And the thing is, when a child is born, the old telepathy is still there. It was inherited from a different person, and they'll sound like a total adult. So sometimes babies are born whose telepathies are adult telepathies who have been around the block a couple times, and it's a total mess. Anyways, so how this scenario resolved itself. Russia for quite some time had been experimenting with developing a new kind of telepathy, one that is suited towards humans. Yeah, and so what they do is they take these telepathies and they dump them on, they test them on people living in mental institutions or schizophrenic people. So what they do is they sort of design prototypes and disseminate them across a test audience, and schizophrenics are very susceptible to this. And so one day I was in the hospital, and a big green key lime appeared in my head. I didn't know what it was at the time, but and I gotta say, this is just a story. Yeah, I'm not entirely certain if it means what I think it means. My happenstance in this story is what I've put together over the time that I've been sober and non-psychotic. So this happened 4 to 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. Anyway, so I was in the mental hospital, and I saw this big key lime, a green Russian key lime. I know it was the Russians because I talked to them later. It's totally crazy. We have so much to talk about as far as my adventures in the spectral realm went. God damn, there was so much cool stuff that happened up there. Anyways, so later on I learned that this telepathy was invented by the Russians, and there's... Anyways, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, yeah? These telepathies... Anyways, so what happened was I was the one who finally put the final nail in the telepathy. Yeah, I somehow or another, I managed to finish the unfinished telepathy, the human-only telepathy, the human-based telepathy, yeah? The telepathy that is based on the human psyche, and so is compatible with humanity. And so once I did, I mass-produced it and I distributed it to people for free. I actually paid people to take it. And it's been distributing ever since, and I think right now the market penetration is like 98.7% or something like that. So Yeah, so that's how humanity went from having the wrong kind of telepathy to finally having a telepathy that is geared towards the human psyche. This telepathy is very kind, very nice, very chill, and does not cuss everyone out when they try to communicate with it. And that's the story of how humanity gained its own special telepathy. It wasn't me, really. I just sort of put the final nail in the final nail in the telepathy. The telepathy I received was actually a junk telepathy, a branch of the code that was junked, and then just tossed it out and said, "Why not?" And so I just sort of tinkered with it a little bit and finally got it to work. Yeah, I finally got it to work. But the problem is, through my travels, yeah, or because of my medication, the medication I'm taking, I'm unable to see and I'm unable to hear up in the spectral realm. I can just barely see what's going on. I can just barely hear what's going on. Okay, so this is the thing. If you want to communicate with someone telepathically, you have to realize that sometimes they'll just go nope and say, forget about it. This never happened. I don't think I want to continue this. It's totally fine. Because being contacted telepathically by someone sitting directly across from you is quite the existential experience. Yeah, it feels like your mind is naked. Okay, and that's why most people do not like communicating telepathically. It's very awkward. You're going mind to mind, heart to heart. It's like you're contacting someone else's psyche, and it feels very weird. I've never actually. I have actually communicated telepathically with quite a few people, but I've never actually done any conclusive research, and I don't know how to do conclusive research. I did major in psychology in college, and I do know how to write a research paper, but I don't have the credentials, I don't have the schooling, and no one will believe me, and no one will join my study. No one will join my study. That's it. I was thinking about creating like a survey on SurveyMonkey and being like, have you seen this place in reality, in the spectral realm? Or, anyways, yeah, telepathy. If you want to speak to someone telepathically, just try and connect to them. Yeah, look them in the eye, and sort of project yourself onto their head. And once you're online, if they go like this, their head will go like this. If you didn't ask their permission, actually. Sometimes I talk to people telepathically without asking their permission because it's kind of hard to get permission for this kind of thing. But I don't do anything harmful, I think. I hope. So you go like this. When someone is connected, and then you sort of beam stuff into their mind. I've actually done it before. In the ward, over the internet, a lot of times. But most people feel very uncomfortable in that situation and will try to back out. Alright. Next time, or let's just finish the extra minute and 20 seconds we have to get to 20 minutes. So, again, a recap. Telepathy. The reason why humans don't have mind-to-mind telepathy was because when humans were very primitive, we were sold the wrong kind of telepathy. And that wrong kind of telepathy sort of permeated it was like trying to install some like non-native software, and there were a lot of bugs. It just wasn't human telepathy. It wasn't human telepathy. That's just the thing. It was the telepathy for a race of beings known as Tryptophylexians. Let me tell you about these Tryptophylexians. Oh boy, oh man. Maybe I'll make a whole video on Tryptophylexians later. They're an alien species that live somewhere in... I don't even know if they live in the Milky Way galaxy. But they live somewhere in the universe, and they're a species who sexualize pain. Or not just sexualize pain. No, but not in the way of like a masochist, a human masochist, okay? These Tryptophylexians live in pain. Pain is like their society's motivating, but like in order to get a good job in a Tryptophylexian company, you have to endure torture, like hardcore torture. for humans, and these tryptophylexians over the years have developed very sensitive nervous systems. So the reason why they were so centered around pain is to keep themselves tough, because the tryptophylexians developed in a world on a planet with 6 separate sentient species, and 3 of those species preyed on the other sentient species. So tryptophylexians are actually the bottom. They were the lowest level of sentient species. They were sentient, but the more sentient species ate them. And so in order to survive as a people, they had to go super Spartan. Anyways, so these tryptophylexians, I think that's where the humans got it. It could not be from them. But whatever the case, we humans purchased from interdimensional dealers a form of telepathy that just wasn't suited to the human psyche. And that's why telepathy wasn't widely circulated. That was why the armistice existed. The whole problem was that back then, the serpents, they were just interdimensional salespeople or interdimensional caravan traders who looked kind of serpent-like. I actually saw some of them. Alright, a last story. At one point, I was used as a stuff. So I met these interdimensional traders, and oh my god, they were fucking like, they could sell like pure emotion. Okay, they could sell you like the experiences of like super drugs. Like, man, they have some serious, like, they were spice traders. They were bad guys, but these interdimensional traders I met, they were spice traders. Yeah, they traded spice, which is like a exactly what you think it is. It's like a metaphysical drug. It's totally illegal, probably, I think. And at one point, they attempted to use me as a stuff bug. They stuffed my cavity, my virtual cavity full of spice drugs, and tried to use me as a, like how people sometimes stuff drugs into teddy bears. Yeah, that was what they tried to use me as. But I escaped. I escaped before they could do it, and I may actually still have that drug stuff left over. I don't know where it is. I may have dropped it somewhere. Anyways, that's the story. I have a lot more stories from up there. Ask questions about it if you want below. If you really want to, pick my brain about this stuff, go into my Discord. I'll link my Discord below. Stay safe, flatten the curve. Don't take any of this seriously. And or if you really want to take it seriously, yes. But if you don't want to take it seriously, don't take it seriously. And that's it. I'll have more stories later. Toodaloo.